Why they call it liquid death?
Oh, what?
That's out of your 72.
Only Rochelle.
Sure.
72.
Is it 7?
Mm,
Yep.
maybe.
On the dot.
Yep. 1, 2, 3.
I gotta look what date it is.
Well, I'll do that.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Borough Council meeting for September 17th, 2024. Please rise to pledge the flag and remain standing for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Grace?
I'm here.
Here.
Miss Lloyd? She's here.
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 Here. I'd like to report on our last executive session. We discussed real estate. No action was taken. Now is the time of public comment on the agenda items only. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on to the agenda. Ken, agenda item 1.
Do I have a motion to approve council meeting minutes for the September 3rd, 2024 meeting as submitted?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Number 2.
Do I have a motion to approve payment of bills as shown on the accounts payable list dated September 12, 2024, which is for the period of August 29, 2024 through September 12 of 2024, and to ratify the approval of such bills already paid and to authorize the appropriate officials to take the required actions to make those payments?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 3.
Okay, that would be over Deer Park. We received the bids for the reconstruction of that park. Do I have a motion to award the Overdeer Park Improvements Project to the low bidder, Doug Lamb Construction Incorporated, in the amount of $228,672.50, subject to bid review by solicitor and execution of the agreement between the borough and contractor, receipt of required insurance documents, and receipt of acceptable performance and payment bonds?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
Ken, part of this is covered by a grant, correct?
That's correct.
Do you know roughly what the cost to the borough is?
It's a 50% matching grant.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yep.
Now, we have the prevailing wage determination on it.
Any
For those
other-
of you listening, Engineer Sheets is here as well, if there are any additional questions.
Okay, any additional questions? If not,
No.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 4.
Grass cutting contract. Do I have a motion to award the grass cutting bid to the low bidder, Laudermilk Landscapes, for the weekly mowing of borough properties in the amount of $67,332.91 for the year 2025 and the year 2026, and $71,037.25 for year 2027.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
President Miller, I have a question for Matt. Matt, I know that over the past season, there was discussion on the ball fields, the outfields, having different cutting needs than just regular mowing. Is that addressed in this bid?
No, they were listed as an alternate bid, and those alternates were extremely higher than what we have budgeted. So this is the standard fare that we've been doing. Just one cut a week, correct, Matt?
Yes.
No grass collection, no second cut.
The alternates are on the bid tabulation that was in your packet, but it does add a good bit.
I recommend the basic. It fits into your budget. I think it's a lot of money to collect grass at a ball field and a second cut, which may not suit them anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that because we did spend some time working with the Baseball Association on the issue of the fact that clumping in the outfields makes fielding more difficult or balls bounce. You can imagine. I'm not saying that's necessarily ours to solve one way or the other. I'm just bringing it up because there was some discussion around that this spring.
Matt, do you have the numbers for the alternate? Because I don't see it in my packet.
What's the alternate?
The alternate
come
one,
up,
282 each
Oh,
mow.
you found it?
It would be for the actual winner was the last person was Watermill. In the aggregate, he was less for the overall. The alternate one was $300 each mow, and alternate two was $325 each mow, and the alternates were defined. I didn't pronounce the whole bid packet, sorry. But yeah, alternate one, I believe was cutting it twice a week, and the other, one of the alternates is cutting it twice a week, and the other one is cutting it and bagging it each week. And, I believe this is based on 37 weeks of mowing, and alternate one would be $300 times 36 or 37. Alternate two would be $325 times the same number of weeks.
Which adds roughly $13,000.
And that would be for what? The fields, the baseball fields?
Just two baseball fields.
Just two baseball.
That would be for Med Ed and for Oak Hill Spark.
Mm-hmm.
What
So I thought $12,000 to bag just two baseball fields was a lot of money.
What
for-
about
You wanna-
Susquehanna?
No.
Doesn't include Susquehanna.
They said these were their premier fields. These are
Okay.
the ones that
They just have those two fields.
What do they want? What's the difference that you're supposed to mow there? You're supposed to mow them more frequently or different levels? Or
Well,
I'm just not familiar.
Matt,
over the, for whatever vendors, whatever the reasons were, a lot of our turf was getting cut way too low.
Okay.
And for good turf management, it really should be maintained around 3 inches. And some of our grass was getting cut close to 1.5 inches previously. Whether by the vendor or whether folks were going out there before a game and cutting it. So we had a very wet spring. We fertilized in the spring this year, and the grass really grew like crazy.
yeah.
The concern that was raised was that with the weekly mowing, because the grass was growing so quickly, I'm sure some people probably had to cut their grass at home twice a week for a while in the springtime.
Yeah.
With just having it done once a week, there would be clumps and, clippings, extra clippings on the surface. And, the MABA folks, noted in one of the meetings that we had with them that it made play more difficult, it would slow the ball down, all kinds of different things. So it really does become a cost versus benefit, situation. There's nothing stopping the organizations if they wanna try and do a fill-in, but, our I'm surprised, I mean, you can see what some of the other bids were. One of the other bids was almost 83,000, and one of them was almost 77, or over 77,000. So adding in some alternates, we're hitting 90 pretty close, depending on how.
I have a question.
Okay,
Is this an increase from what we paid this year?
The $67,000 is an increase from what we pay this year.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's definitely an increase.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to have them bag the ball fields, you're gonna increase it by another 12,000 over the 67,000. Now, the second cut adds another 12,000, is that how, or no, the $25?
It's an and or. One of them was cut once a week and bag it as part of our normal once a week
I
mowing.
gotcha.
They would bag that one,
Right.
and then that additional
Cut.
cost, the 300 gets added per week. And then the other alternate was cutting it twice a week, so they would cut all of the borough properties once and then come back at 3 days later, whatever it would be, and then they would cut just those two specific areas again during the same time frame, same week.
I see.
And Matt, you have the 67,000, that's what's in the budget now?
Yes, yeah, that should be fine. I honestly don't have my budget book in front of me here, I apologize. But yes, we knew it was going up, so we added some extra into that line item. But if the alternates we had no idea what the alternates would be because that was never bid before. The alternates would probably, we may have to look at, revising that budget line item, because the same line item for the grass mowing is also the line item that the, porta potties come out of for all of the parks. That's another service that's provided.
But we could, you know, if council chooses to honor the request MABA and bag it and cut it twice, you can certainly vote this motion down and propose another motion.
I have one more comment. I just would like to say that I would be in favor of the 67,000. While I understand, you know, their need to have a second cut and to have that outfield change a little differently, if we can cover the 67 and our budget is balanced, I'm really not in favor of increasing it and then, you know, looking at an alternative in the budget, we would have to make a cut somewhere else or possibly, you know, raise taxes, and I'm definitely not in favor of that.
The other thing is, this assumes a second cut through the entire growing season. And many times, once you hit July and August, there's no need to cut it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
You
just in the
can't
spring.
say a second cut April and May only.
We didn't put it out that way.
Right. And even sometimes during the summer, unfortunately, the weeds seem to grow whether there's a drought or not. And to try to keep it even looking and appealing, generally they cut every week. You'll always get stragglers that pop up.
Right.
Does the borough have their own mowers at all?
Before I was here, excuse me, there were more staff, and at one time I believe the borough did do its own lawn mowing. We have one kind of getting up in age zero turn, and we have a number of push mowers.
But that's not a bagger, is it?
No, it is
It's just
not.
a
It's just a
regular.
straight zero turn.
But there are some organizations who either purchase themselves, or maybe the borough or township purchases maybe a Craftsman type mower and keeps it at the field in case somebody wants to get another cut in, you know, and they can do it. Maybe it's cheaper to look at that option, buying a $4,000 Craftsman and
I think
parking it
that's
out there.
definitely
you know,
a better option.
If there's a shed.
Oh.
And that's just another option for the spring stuff or the oddball things, but.
That then they could go out and mow with a bag on it and take care of it
Yes.
with the 3-inch requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely probably want to have the conversation with them to see that they're agreeable to that before we would.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah.
I
We
understand.
would definitely want to include them on that. Yeah, for the mowing it's kind of hard for the mowing contractor. The more times they have to come into town, it messes up their schedule.
Their schedule,
We're not
right.
their only client, so
Yeah,
that's why the cost gets a little more expensive for the add-ons, because it's more time. For
more time to come back into town. Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Matt.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 5.
Do I have a motion to authorize council president to enter into a 60-month lease agreement with Axon Enterprise Incorporated for tasers and accessories for the Middletown Borough Police Department in a total amount of $69,288.85.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6.
Resolution 2024-20. Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-20, authorizing the Borough Council President and the Director of Finance and Administration to be designated and directed to sign any and all agreements entered into with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation as it relates to the Email Street Streetscape Project?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7.
Do I have a motion to advertise ordinance 2024-1411 for the street dedication of Sage Boulevard, Magnolia Drive, Foxglove Drive, Treetop Lane in Woodland Hills, phases 4, 6A, and 10A?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8.
Item number 8 is a motion. Do we have a motion to advertise ordinance 2024-1413
15.
15 for the acceptance of sewer lines within the portion of Sage Boulevard, Magnolia Drive, Foxglove Drive, and Treetop Lane at Woodland Hills?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 9.
Do I have a motion to advertise ordinance 2024-1416 for the acceptance of water lines within the portion of Sage Boulevard, Magnolia Drive, Foxglove Drive, and Treetop Lane in Woodland Hills?
So moved?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 10.
Do I have a motion to advertise ordinance 2024-1417 for the stop signs at intersections of Sage Boulevard, Magnolia Drive, Foxglove Drive, and Treetop Lane in Woodland Hills?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 11.
Do I have a motion to approve the financial security cost estimate in the amount of $169,250 as recommended by HRG for the maintenance of Woodland Hills, Phase 6A and 10A?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 12, the manager's report.
Okay. If you're looking at my report, we have covered item number 1, item number 2, and item number 3. Item number 4 is informational, about our solicitor looking into revising our ordinance regarding signs. That'll be forthcoming in the future. Item number 5, I was contacted by the developer for the planned residential housing project at the Lytle Farm in Londonderry Township, and that developer is seeking some relief from the requirements to which came about as a result of a traffic study he was required to do at Main and Vine Streets, in order to alleviate his requirements from PennDOT to contribute to some other traffic control costs that we have. He is asking if we'd be willing to entertain installing a no left turn signal for traffic that's exiting the Giant Shopping Center onto Main Street.
Sign, no left turn sign.
No left turn sign. It's kind of a cheaper way that would help reduce the flow of traffic to that light. And I told him I didn't think council would be for it. I can't really strongly recommend it, but I would bring it forth and let you know about the request.
Do you know if they're
Josh knows.
required to put a light there at Giant if they don't get that, or it just impacts the Vine Street?
So essentially, my understanding of it is, our recommendations aren't directly required by the developer, but they're taken into consideration by PennDOT. Essentially, PennDOT is the one administering the comments. So, let's say our recommendations in the memo, address the signal, the level of service that it was decreasing, and that's kind of where these comments are coming from. So,
But they would not be required to put a light there at Giant?
I don't think
Okay.
so.
But I think
too
in the
close to
report,
get-
the suggestion would be that to alleviate this, he could donate, I think it's an amount of like $10,000 that we could apply to
Like
other
the
traffic
fee in
controls
lieu of-
elsewhere in the borough to alleviate him of this issue.
Did you say he is not required to put in a light? You didn't say that.
He's not required to put in a traffic light. He asked that we would put in a no left turn sign.
And if we don't,
Then he would have to, most likely, PennDOT could make him,
Yeah,
follow
we
our
don't
suggestion.
have a definitive answer. Yes.
yeah, we don't, but it could come down to PennDOT might say,
you need a light.
no. They say, well, there's no solution to this problem, but because you're adding more traffic there, you may be required to give Middletown $10,000 to put toward maybe some restriping, brightening up crosswalks, some other type of traffic improvement.
But we don't even know specifically what he's asking for
There's no
relief from.
specifics on what PennDOT requires.
No, but he's anticipating and he's looking for something that he can have to go back to PennDOT for relief.
No.
Yeah, it'd be hard for council to figure out a decision if you don't know what you're giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
What would PennDOT make happen? But
they couldn't even make us put a light up there because it's too close to the light that's right there at Vine and Main.
okay.
Make them put the light up down at Lytle Farm. I mean, that makes more sense than,
Yeah, I guess we don't know what PennDOT would be.
It's hard to have a discussion since we don't really have all the information, but
He's
telling citizens that they can't turn left
Yeah,
onto
no.
Main Street out of Giant is not anything that makes sense to me right now, so no. Yeah.
they'd have to actually block off that entrance or that exit there and make everybody go out to,
Race,
no, not Race Street.
Adelia.
I mean,
Adelia.
Adelia.
And make the left turn.
Oh, you're
from
talking
there.
And then what, the
Adelia?
guy that bought the the car wash is not gonna have his customers go out and make a right onto Main Street? I mean,
That's
it's ridiculous.
I know, it's,
No.
That's what they'd end up having to do.
I don't understand what solution he needs, but that's not one that's practical
It's not practical.
No.
for people who use the Giants
No.
parking shopping center, so.
Um,
Thank you for letting him know it was probably not going to work out.
No.
Item number 6, we have a special event request from the Alumni Association for the annual homecoming parade, Saturday, October 12th. They want to set up at Huffer Park starting at 9 a.m. and the parade starting from at 12:30 and running to approximately 1:30 p.m. Parade route will be Race to Emall, to Pine, to Water, to Race, to Conewaga, into the parking lot at Memorial Field, as it is in past years. If everybody's okay with this, we'll just add it to the agenda for approval at our business meeting.
Sure.
Grace, thank you for having the insurance attached.
Item number 7 is another special event request, this one from the Moose, for another parade, only this one's the Halloween parade, for Saturday, October 26th, from 6 to 9 p.m., using the same route as in previous years, starting at Huffer Park, north on Ray Street, west on Water, south on Union, and ending at Brown Street in front of Carnes. If everybody's okay with that, we'll put that on your business meeting. Another annual request for a contribution to the Neighborhood Dispute Settlement. The request is for the annual commitment of $2,400, the same as it has been for the past few years. If anybody doesn't object, we'll put that on the business meeting as well. And then number 9, council heard from Superintendent Wilsbach last night about the auction for electric capacity supply that PJM just conducted recently, that is going to result in an increase in our pass-through electrical costs in 2025. And this is just another informational item here for those who might be listening in who didn't listen to the budget meeting. The council is proposing a budget to cover those costs that are going to be passed on to us through the supplier, the one who delivers the power to Middletown. And that cost has gone up as a result of an increased demand over the existing supply in the PJM network, which stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, and Maryland. And that distribution network is operated by PJM. They go out and purchase power from power plants, and they charge what's called a capacity price, which has to do with peaks in consumption during cold periods and hot periods. And there's a cost associated with higher demands, and that's what the pass-through costs are about when they're based on peaks. So we're looking at a significant increase in that cost. It would have been steady for many years, and now it's getting volatile because we've learned that in recent years here, maybe last year, Greg, that the demand for energy has increased by like 6,600 megawatts in this district, and only 100 new megawatts of power has been permitted to come online. So there's a deficit there. And also, over 3,000 megawatts of power producing coal plants, gas plants are being retired with no replacement. So it's really a market-based thing, a stock market thing, supply and demand, and when the demand is much higher than supply, costs go up, and that's what we're looking at. That cost is expected to be applied in June of 2025. So we're planning now for a budget and eventual resolution that will cover that. So we're ready to go in effect and recover those costs from our users in beginning in June of 2025. And if there aren't any other questions, that concludes my report for tonight.
Do we want to talk about number 10?
Which, the field scheduling?
Well, the idea of renaming certain fields
Oh, I'm sorry.
for utility costs.
Yeah. We recently had a meeting with the MABA organization, Middletown Amateur Baseball Association, and they're looking for ways to generate funds to support their programs. And one of the things that they put before us at our meeting was, would the council be okay with them looking into a sponsorship program where they go out to a private company? I guess this is happening in some other areas, that they play in other towns, where a private company will pay a certain amount of money or pay for certain maintenance at fields in exchange for putting their company logo sign at that field and renaming that field. So instead of an Oak Hills ball field, it might be renamed the Giant Foods ball field and have a sign. That's what they're asking, if they would be okay to investigate that, if we would have a problem with that.
I think the way it was described, if the field was renamed, the park would not be renamed. So it could be the, fill in the blank company field at Med-Ed Park. And wasn't there a precedent for that, Greg or Matt?
Yeah, it would have been Oak Hills and
It was the Legion Park at Oak Hills. I'm sorry, the Legion Field at Oak Hill Park. Yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a big American Legion sign on that building. I don't know if it's still there.
For a lot of years, was the one that supported that field. And cost for upgrades of certain things.
We've met with MABA twice now, 3 times maybe, twice, just to open up conversation and communication, which has been very helpful and for them to understand how the borough operates, and we in turn have a clear understanding of how they are operating. Fundraising is something that they take very seriously, in light of a request that they've made to put more lights up down at Med-Ed Park. Greg and Matt found a price for them to consider, and it was $120,000. So fundraising is how they are willing to meet the expenses of their own organization.
I suggested to Jenny that they go to Med-Ed. And ask them for money as well as the vet and American Legion, because they're always looking
for some
to help some organizations.
They did tell us that they have been contacting people for donations
and
like
even Sarah, that would be a good organization to look into.
Yeah.
There's at least 4 of them that have a little bit of deep pockets. And this is going to require a contractor, because Med-Ed can't do that work.
No, I know Greg has worked that out with them.
So
their specific request was, how does council feel about the renaming of these ball fields if they get someone who's willing to give money to do that annual contributions?
Yeah, but that would be a good one to call Med-Ed Field. Leave it as Med-Ed Field.
Jim, do you have any thoughts?
So there are different ways you could slice that. One of the things, some corporates, I've had clients ask, would you put in a $500,000 artificial turf field for this high school or whatever? But a lot of those big deals, they're looking for a permanent renaming of something. But you certainly could be doing, it's more of an advertising thing for the next year or 5 years or whatever. It's renamed, and you're agreeing to this support during that time, but it's not in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm.
Middletown Eckerd Siemens Field.
Yeah.
No?
No.
All right. I tried. I tried.
I always defer to HRG on this.
Well, there's more than one baseball field.
Yeah, you could be down there at Susquehanna.
The other item that came up, the youth club was also represented at that meeting because the MAB president also serves as the youth club president. And we discussed to give them a heads up, make sure they knew that the water and sewer was going to be billed starting next year on that building. And also that the electric rates are going to go up in June because of this PJM issue. And they expressed their concern as far as being able to pay for everything at that building. They're doing the best they can, but they're struggling to pay the utilities last year, and they suspect it's just going to make it more difficult. So we said, we would let council be aware of that, and they typically struggle in the winter when you have to heat it with those high ceilings. It's when Little League basketball starts. So one of the things they did to try to offset it last year was Mara agreed to let them charge a fee to come and see the games where they were free before. But as other costs go up, I don't know, what the gate is for something like that. But
Right.
they're concerned, and they're looking at that, and possibly maybe at some point coming in here and asking for help or some type of relief. That's what I took out of the conversation. So that completes my report. Unless you have something else there, Ellen, that I missed.
No, sir.
So I wonder about the Fry Trust, because aren't they supposed to be supporting
We gave
the
them
youth
a number of
Middletown?
names, and that was one we
Okay.
threw out there that they could go and talk to, and, that support the organizations. And they're willing to go knock on doors. We gave them some names, and let's see what happens there.
Did you give them that, Ed?
Yeah, we talked about a number of things. I just don't want to run through the list here at the meeting because I don't know if those companies would appreciate me doing that.
Pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 13, codes. Jason?
Good evening.
Evening.
The first two are general statistics that I typically bring every workshop report. Number 3, I add, it's a revision from a late edition here that occurred, the 2024 fee schedule resolution that was given to you. Codes recommends approval for that after review. To have the 2024 fee schedule that includes the dumpster permit addition and my quick ticket fees that were passed in ordinance to be implemented as soon as possible. The number 4, we're continuing to work with the solicitor on the lot consolidations. Solicitor Diamond has given us some ordinances to review, and we'll review that with the staff, and then we'll come up with more to council as we get a better definition on that. And then per council's request, codes received quotes for the rental inspections. I found 2, the Commonwealth Codes quote and the Barry Isaac quote.
Jason, I have a question. On this Barry Isaac. Is this a typographical error, or am I seeing this correctly?
You're seeing the 115 an hour?
Yeah. That's correct?
Correct. So,
Okay.
yeah, I spoke with them a little bit more. They average about 2 hours. 2 units per hour. And so that comes down to about $60 an inspection on an average. And there's more information on those details of how that would look. We can talk about those more.
But the $60 cost would require us to administer, right?
We would have to administer the billings and.
So then we might be
Oh.
looking at part-time help or
Right.
additional help in the
Right.
office.
Right.
Whereas 125 is, we don't really do
We
anything.
don't do anything. We might receive a phone
That's
call
what it-
Yeah.
or
do it all.
a bill complaint.
Yeah.
That's it.
Commonwealth's second idea is they take care of it.
They take
Correct.
care of
They
everything.
provided two options, and the one option for the 125 is taking care of all of it. We might receive a complaint call, or we might have take a check to put to the rental inspections, but we wouldn't be administering much.
That,
more.
if we were gonna do it, that's where I would be
Yeah.
recommending.
Yeah.
Because, the first option, you might be in the middle of, okay, they're telling you to submit the NOV, and based upon then now we're both drawn into court,
Mhm.
them and us,
Correct.
and there's this three-way argument over what should have been the NOV or shouldn't have been. And
Yeah.
I kinda like the idea where
Yeah,
they're handling it all.
the
They're doing the
easy-
NOV, they're going to court.
the easier process would be to have one party doing all the work. That way there's no confusions,
Yep.
no overlaps, and
Mm-hmm.
schedule conflicts, name it.
No dropping the ball from
Right.
one party to the next.
Right. We were interested in an idea that had the least impact on borough staff
Right.
and borough budget.
Mhm.
So that's the one. No impact.
Right.
Almost no.
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
There's no.
we're
no-
still going to do involvement because we have the registration list and all that stuff that
Mhm.
we're going to monitor, but we wouldn't have boots on the ground as much as we would with the other options.
And we'd still be doing the licensing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the permits and the handling of that would still be by our department.
Right.
And who pays for that inspection fee?
The landlords would pay for all those.
And,
Right.
and the goal is to do that once every 3 years?
So that's up to council's decision here. Now, there's different options that you can make. You can do every 3 years, and then you can give them rewards. So if they pass, they might skip 2 more years of inspection. But if there's a complaint, then it might bring them back into doing once a year before they get a pass. So there's different ways you can do this. It all depends on the
Mm-hmm.
ordinance creation.
Yeah, once every year, once every 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Ice Bar does once every 6 years.
Yeah. 6 is kind of on the long end, but it's still something. You know, it still brings them back around every so many years. Probably a more
Mm-hmm.
common longer term would be 4 years.
Right.
Especially, I mean, this town has a lot of rental units, so one of the other approaches, and I don't know what they're envisioning here with the dollars, per hour concept and billing, but a lot of times you'll bill the annual license fee, and you're scaling that based on the approximate cost of running these inspections, but you're not billing a landlord for here's your inspection bill. You know what I mean? I pay my annual fee, and that fee covers all the inspections in the town for that year collectively so it's not like, you're coming in inspection, I gotta hand,
Mm-hmm.
the third party $125. I just pay my annual license fee, and we scale the license fee based on the cost of the program divided by all the, we estimate to be the universe of landlords that are gonna be in the program.
I understand.
And when you think about it, it's a universal system, so it'll carry itself like that. If you're doing it every 4 years, you're divided by 4. It's rough estimates. But different from like a building permit, it may be this house here never gets a building permit, and this one's getting 3 a year, so that makes sense that you're billing individually people for that service. But when you have a licensing and universal inspection thing, it might make more sense to not have, we would be paying $115 an hour, but we wouldn't be trying to individually bill people for the inspection fees.
Gotcha.
But under that scenario, we may be wedded to having our own involvement with this, because we might talk to a contractor like this quote and say, well, we wanna bill directly each time we're there. That's how, if you're gonna pick full service, this is how we wanna do it.
So, yeah, if they're, and I think we wanna know that, if
Yeah.
they're thinking they want, I would be surprised, if I were running the company, I would rather bill and deal with the municipality and not be chasing, you know, unpaid
Landlords.
bills, you know, all over town. But, yeah, I don't know have they given any,
They have not given
parameters on what
detail,
they'll
but
do.
it may be similar to how our permit processes are, where we'll accept checks, but they handle all the processing and all that stuff.
yeah, like I said, that, to me, that's different, and that makes sense when I'm gonna build a patio, it's gonna be X dollars, I should pay for my permit. But in this kind of system, in my mind, there ought to be trying to scale the program costs, and every landlord pays, you know, a fee once a year, every 2, whatever it is, but to cover that set of costs, even though I don't expect to get an inspection for the next 3 years, I'm still, you know, paying a quarter of what, you know, an inspection fee would be.
Right, yeah, that's how I interpreted it as well.
Okay.
And
that-
then if there was a complaint or an issue, then it triggers a whole nother fee towards that, like an additional fee.
Yeah, and then you're never chasing individual inspection fees. You chase fines, or you know, this company chases fines. But it's very easy when people have licenses to say, you owe money, no license, you know. And it is pretty easy to police that, to actually post, you know, nobody can be in there. You know, I mean, there's a little bit of art to trying to figure out how much the first year or two, but you're gonna know how many applications or, you know, how many rentals are out there, and
Right.
Yeah, and there's been ordinances that I've read where they would start the inspections in between new renters, so that it's an empty house and there's no schedule conflicts or anything like that. So when a house is becoming a rental, or when they're shifting and changing from tenant to tenant, that makes it an easy inspection as well.
Jason, what would implementation look like?
So, that could be multiple ways. We could, once the ordinance gets created here, it could be in different phases of the borough, where they start to work their way through the rental process. We could simply start it as far as when a new rental comes, that's when we'll do the inspections, and that gets scheduled, or a new home gets scheduled. It could be then at complaint based, then that gets scheduled. So it could be a combination of all of it.
yeah. So what I've seen is there's a big, you know, you kind of adopt it. Here's what the rules are, and then you know, you have to leave an educational period where you're gonna have to get the word out to everybody. Here's what's going on. Now you generally don't grandfather anybody. It's not zoning. So you would be saying everybody, if you're going to be renting, you have to come in and pull a license.
Right.
And you have to pay. Now, it might be, we're only going to get to, you know, you're going to end up on the wheel of a cycle, or whether we're doing it in areas of town, or whether you're doing it just, you know, first come, first, whatever. Everybody pays the same inspection fee, or same permit, license fee. And some people won't, and then, you know, you'll find out about it, you'll see advertisements, somebody will complain and say, hey, I'm paying this, these guys are running this, and, you know, like anything else, you'll catch them and tell them, you know, you're operating without a license, and, you know, if you don't stop it, we're gonna start fining you and take you to court and, you know, pull your occupancy permit or whatever we need to do. But it's, you know, it's a ramp up thing,
Yeah.
and then adjusting, like, you know, things aren't in that bad a shape, maybe we can stretch it to 5 years instead of 4 years, and, you know, you're coming back. You know, you don't want it to be, and by law, remember, whenever we're doing fees for things, they have to be reasonable, so, you know, it shouldn't be But we always can try to carry the cost of that system, and this is one where the courts really have looked at these landlord programs, and it's, like I said, it's kind of an interesting thing, because when you think about it, it's a known, at some point, you know, there's a objective universe of landlords out there. And, you know, there's so many of them, and you're gonna do so many inspections, and, you know, once you get a handle on that, you can estimate
Then
what's a
it just-
reasonable fee. And then you are kind of playing with, you know, watching the outside contractors, and is there a point where, you know, the money we're spending, is it better to just hire somebody on staff, you know, person or two, and run it in-house? But at least initially, we don't have any background in doing this.
Right, right.
You know, you wouldn't
Right.
wanna try to get that off the ground, and then, you know,
Mm-mm.
you don't know how to inspect them. So I think certainly putting in a new
And I would think
program,
that
it's
you
very
would
good to have outside.
You would want some kind of program that tracks this for you instead of trying to track this manually. You would want some,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ready, set up with that or not, if that's another cost we'd have to add.
Well, and I would, so some of these outside groups will have, you know, their own
Tracking?
program, yeah, and they'll walk around with an iPad looking thing, and they're,
Okay.
you know,
Oh,
pushing the buttons, and it's all you know, populating into your database. We have to make sure we own that the data part of it, and, you know, it's not something where we're locking into some proprietary thing where, you know, it costs us a fortune to get our data at the end or something like that. But, you know, presumably these guys all have some efficient platform you'd be looking at before you actually lock into a contract with anyone, to say that makes sense to us.
Jason, is there anything else you want us to know about this full service option that we haven't asked?
I think from what I can think of, everything's been provided. It's more of now creation and ordinance and design. And that's going to take some time and thought to really get this done well, so that it's effective and efficient for the landlords and the tenants.
Yeah, and you can look at, and I think I told you, you know, it was the latest where it really was done in depth was Londonderry, because they're changing from a much more rural place to, they think, a less
Right.
rural place. So they did a two-pronged package. I'm saying this concept, the licensing and inspection, is not zoning. They also, though, in tandem, did zoning really primarily to address short-term rentals. You know, the
Vacation.
Verbo and the, you know,
Yeah.
so the Airbnb stuff, they really wanted to understand what that was, and compartmentalize that in certain neighborhoods. You don't necessarily have to do that, and you don't regulate that long-term rentals in zoning. So, you know, if you can have a single-family home somewhere, it can be a rental or it can be owned, and it's, you know, Pennsylvania law doesn't really allow you to treat that differently just because it's owned or rented.
Right,
But
right.
short-term rental is different in the zoning sense, because that's viewed more as lodging, temporary, you know, transitory lodging. So, like I said, you don't have to do them together, but if you did have a concern of short-term rentals, or, you know, how they should be regulated, you know, you could do it as a, you know, it's actually two ordinances, but side by side, you know, being put together. But there was probably a half year there was so much interest and people just coming in big groups wanting to, and it impacted on the you know, we should change that. So it really was a work in progress for several months. And it would not surprise me here if you had the same kind of interactive process for many months with.
And what triggers the interactive process? The decision to draft an ordinance?
Yeah, so you don't officially, if you remember, when we do ordinances, so when we do zoning ordinances, there's an extra set of steps. It goes through the planning commissions. These don't have to, the non-zoning piece of it. In Londonderry, they were really running them together, so they actually wanted the planning commission even to comment on the non-zoning piece, but there was so much interest. And it's a little different dynamic there too, because in a township like that, you know, they have the neighborhoods that are spread out,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like, oh, you know, they're losing their minds if there's
Mm-hmm.
an Airbnb next door and there's big parties going on or whatever. So, you know, they have feelings about what kind of neighborhoods and how big the lot should be and all that kind of stuff. But there was intense interest here. I don't think you'd have all the same kinds of concerns and things, but I think you're going to have, you know, you have, what, 60% rentals? I mean,
What
some
is it,
very big
Jason?
number.
Yeah, it's up-
60?
So you got interested landlords, interested tenants,
Uh-huh.
interested, you know, realtor. I mean, there'll be a lot of folks that are interested.
Mm-hmm.
But these, we'll say, you know, these inspection and licensing things can be a, you know, at the right point in time, they can be really important for, you know, protecting the housing stock before it goes in a
Right.
bad direction.
That is the
Um,
goal.
Jason, do you have any idea how many Airbnbs that we do have in?
Not off the top of my head. When I looked, I found at least 15 to 20. So there could be more than that. And that was a year ago.
And I will say I have not, sitting here, you know, we're in different towns and there's different dynamics, but I haven't heard here citizens getting all upset about Airbnb.
No, I don't know that we need to link
the
them.
way
It
that,
would
you
drag
know,
it down, I feel.
Yeah, you know.
Do you think we need to have an ordinance?
Well,
Yeah,
Jim was
I
saying it
haven't
can
heard
be two
the-
pieces, and
Yeah.
that would be a much longer conversation and maybe bog
Drag
this
this
one
out
down
a little bit?
Yeah,
Leave it alone then,
for now.
yeah.
and it's funny, in a lot of those more spread out, you know, rural towns, they don't have old infrastructure, old, you know, row
Right.
homes, things like that, where,
Where we do,
yeah, where we
Mhm.
do, and we have codes issues and physical,
yeah.
Yeah,
Concerns,
that's more the
safety issues.
priority, I think,
Yeah,
for us.
yeah, we have more of a codes issue here. Okay.
Jason, got a question. How much, like, if we implemented this, how much would it help you with your day-to-day things that you face?
Good question.
I almost see it probably the same. Because if there's complaints, we're still going to have to address those. Now, we wouldn't be the ones out there doing the inspections, so that kind of saves that, but we're still the ones sending the letters, the violations, and ensuring that they get in compliance. So that just saves us the trip to that. That's pretty much all I would see the difference in.
Okay.
it does give you eyes inside, though, things you wouldn't have, and we've run into, so one of the weird places where we've gotten a lot of extra inside information on things, that some of them were pretty serious safety issues, were because of the electric. You know, the electric would get shut off by a landlord who was trying to use the electric to evict somebody, that kind of stuff. And, you know, we'd end up with the tenant asking somebody from the borough to come in and look at what's going on, but otherwise it wouldn't have been that interaction. But with the rental inspections, you know, you will, at least cyclically, or when somebody's coming new into the program, you know, somebody will walk in, they will see, are there, I think, fire chief was mentioning, you know, the concern of, you know, are there really smoke detectors, that kind of stuff, that you really do see that stuff, and you really do, you know, check those kinds of safety things.
I think any new program you add to a department, even if you're gonna fully contract it, is gonna add some level
Yeah.
of attention to the department. They're gonna, you know, at some point there's gonna be disagreements, questions, problems that the contractor's gonna ask the borough to fix for them or to get involved. I don't know how much that would be, but there's gonna be some level of involvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering that. I mean, Jason, because I wonder, because I figure no matter, like you said, there's going to be more work on your end to some extent. But will there be any work unloaded from you because they're doing these in advance, where you're not going to have to respond?
Down the road.
Take a while.
But yeah, the first wave is going to be
You spoke to E-Town about this, and they said it was a mess.
Yeah.
First
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the same similarity when the, an operable vehicle ordinance got tightened.
Right.
We got through that phase, and that, we're still not 100%, but that 90% there
It's
was
settled down.
rough, so, but now it's more
Yeah, it's a
manageable.
big comprehensive program in a sense, you know,
Mhm.
that,
What were some of Elizabethtown's growing pains?
Oh, just the fact that you're getting these waves of violations and safety concerns. So we're going to definitely get that.
I see.
And then after a while now, they'll all be resolved, and then we'll just basically be like how we are right now. It'll start to mellow down. So we'll have that tsunami effect, and then things
Okay.
will calm down.
yeah, and you will be chasing folks that are resisting up front, and that won't be the third party, just to get them in the
Yeah,
program.
we'll be the ultimate enforcer of the ordinance that's in place, but they'll be our eyes and ears and boots on the ground for the situation.
Gotcha.
Is there more information you think we need, or
At this
questions we
point,
should
I
be
can't
asking?
see of anything else. I think at this point it's more of how do you want to see this designed, and I think there were various ordinances that were put into play. Do we want to hybrid that makes it fit best for Middletown? So that would be the next discussion, and
And are there certain ordinances you want us to review in anticipation of talking about the design for Middletown?
I've seen a lot of them very similar to each other. I didn't really get into the detailed of each one, but I really think how we want to implement it is important. Who we want to exempt and how we want to exempt is important.
Yep.
And what would be the rewards and I don't want to say punishment, but that's the only thing I can think of, but what would be the punishment for not complying?
Yeah, and the punishments are usually pretty easy. Like I said, when you think about it, this is one where you can stop that business pretty quickly by pulling suspending or you know, revoking the
license.
Well, I don't know much about designing a program, so it would help me if there were ordinances that we could study
Yeah.
before a discussion.
And what we can do in the next weeks or so here, or for next workshop, is narrow down an ordinance and kind of create one that would think fit best for
Yeah, and you may want to look at that
Okay.
Londonderry one just for concepts. Now, some of the things won't necessarily translate, and some of the things they had ruled out, you know, we can kind of point out those.
Well,
We've been through this in various towns now many times, but
Can I suggest Londonderry and Elizabethtown?
yeah, we were involved in that one too. So.
Yeah,
Now that's older, you know, a number of years ago.
but that one also works.
Yeah.
Right.
That one,
Good point.
Londonderry and
Elizabethtown matches our town the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, it's a more similar physical plan.
Yeah. So, but they're both pretty similar to Middletown.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason. Item number 14, electric, Greg?
I have no action items at this time, and I have two things I'd like to add to my points of interest that just happened recently. One is I wanted to elaborate on what Ken was saying earlier on his report about electric rates, that this is not a confined to a Middletown issue. This is broad-based throughout the state of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and so forth, Jersey. Everyone will see these same increases across the board. So it has to do with capacity and pass-throughs. So this isn't going to be unique just for Middletown for electric rates to go up. Also, anybody that wasn't at last night's meeting, if you want to sit down with me and I can go over on how we procure power and show you how our bills work and so forth, and I can give you a little explanation on the PJM at any time. Just call or stop in, and I'll be glad to do that with you. So, also, Spruce Street Substation broke ground today.
Wow.
Good.
Oh my
Yes.
heavens.
So
Congratulations.
it's a pretty happy day for me. It's been long overdue. The fence is up, and they started the project. So there's going to be a lot of monitoring the project throughout the next year. With me out there taking a lot of pictures and being the eye on the ground for it. So just to let you know, it's a good day. 2 outages since last report, and they were both due to blown fuses. We couldn't find the culprit. Usually it's a squirrel that gets away, and he's probably sore for a while. So, is there any questions on my report?
You should have gotten Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Number 15, finance report, Sally.
Good evening.
Even.
So the only item that I have on the report is actually to discuss the Royalton donation to the fire department. I gave a recommendation in my report based on my understanding of how it was supposed to work. So, but it's certainly up to council to decide how they want to handle those funds. So I'm looking, I mean, your options are obviously my recommendation, which is the borough maintains the 150, the Royalton monies would come and fulfill the balance of what the fire department is requesting, and the balance left over from those funds would go into the fire sinking fund. So the intent of it is to have Royalton has a piece of the responsibility of the fire department budget, and we are still also, depending on what they ask for, are contributing to the fire sinking fund.
Either way, you're getting 20.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions on that?
I have, Madam President, may I say something before I get into that issue?
Sure.
Sally, I just want to note, I have some thank yous, if I may. At the beginning of her report, she notes that the Mayoral Madness fundraiser account has $4,701, and that does not include the $1,693 raised on the day of the event. So that means that account will have a balance of $6,394. With regard to the Middletown Labor Day car cruise and fireworks display, I want to note for the record that that would not have been possible without the monetary donations from Eckerd Siemens, HRG, and Free Walled Law. Sounds like 3 good names for 3 baseball diamonds. Just saying.
Diamond.
Just letting you know. But in any event, it was their donations that made the fireworks happen, so I want to thank all of them for doing that for us for yet another year. For the residents for turning out, it was an amazing turnout. We definitely had, throughout the course of those 3 hours, 1,500 people, if not more. The car cruise went from around 43 cars in the first year to 120 for the second year. A special thank you to Jenny and her husband Jake and Augie Spadone for helping me with the admittance of the cars to the show and collecting money. All the food trucks that showed up. Harry Lorenzo donated his DJ services yet again for the 10th year. Thank you to the fire department for showing up and the police for showing up for our safety. They did an excellent job. Dan parked all the show cars. Mark Lodslager did a great job with traffic control, bringing them into the event. The Public Works Department, Matt and Garrett and the Electric Department, thank you for everything you guys did, because it was amazing. I mean, Garrett was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and he was moving barriers and doing everything we needed to do, and I think it flowed very well. I mean, it was the first time we ever had that many cars show up. It was kind of surprising, and they all handled the pressure extremely well. So thank you to all those departments. And then to Borough Council for allowing us to have the event, and Ken and Grace for dealing with last minute Jim Curry issues. I appreciate you and everything that you do. So we have a nice balance going into next year. Obviously, we'll continue to try to raise the funds next year so we have a revolving balance. But overall, I would say that was a really successful event. And a lot of people missed the Cuppies cruise that used to be here. I mean, they did an excellent job with that. They raised a lot of money for a lot of causes. And I looked up some of their turnouts, and in their best year, they had 170 cars. So in 2 years, we're getting really close to what they had. So I think that the public has confirmed that they enjoy this event, and I'd like to continue to grow it next year and appreciate your support in that regard. That's it, sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Anybody
you.
have any
Anybody have any other questions for Sally?
I don't have a question. Well, I do have a question. Sally, do you happen to know how much the fire department raised this year?
I do not. But Earl's here.
Oh.
So he's going to be giving his report.
Okay. This is my personal opinion. Obviously, this money, we saw the budget. I am not in agreement with the way that this is laid out. And the reason is, I had a big problem with the fact that Royalton Borough was not paying their fair share for several decades. And we went through months and months of back and forth and negotiations and had letters written. And the whole premise was we give $150,000 a year to the fire department. We also put forth $48,000 for the truck every year. And we use that total amount of money and looked at the population of Middletown and the population of Royalton and figured out what per capita does that mean. And that's how we came up with the amount that we demanded, which was $26,447. I believe that the donation to the fire department should stay $150,000. If you do 150 and they're asking for 169 this year, and you take this 26 from Royalton and you cover the $19,000 that they're over the 150 and put the rest in the sinking fund, we are not at an accurate ratio again. So all of the months and months of effort with Royalton, this is your first budget season since all of that went down, and now the ratio is off already. You didn't even get through one budget season, and the ratio is off again. That's not what we did over all those months and all the back and forth with Royalton. I still believe that puts us in an unfair situation with regard to our residents. And I go back to what I have said ad nauseum. I know that some people don't like to hear it. It's my personal position. I feel I'm a steward of taxpayer money. The fire department should be doing more when it comes to fundraising. And I will reference for probably the 10th time here where I grew up and what the fire departments did there in terms of raising money. That's not being done here. We had the chief of the fire department stand here one evening and say that they ran 3 fundraisers and they raised $500. I want to preface some of the stuff that I'm saying tonight by saying this is not a criticism of the Middletown Volunteer Fire Department. It's me saying volunteers are hard to come by, number one, and if they're going to spend free time fundraising, they should do it in a way that garners the best bang for your buck. Doing these things like selling pies or selling chicken soup, that's not going to get you the money. I stood with a white bucket with no name tag, no identification as anyone special, and raised almost $1,700 in 3 hours for stuff that explodes in the sky. And I promise you that Middletown, it is evident and clear that they are supporters of first responders. If the fire department wants to do a fundraiser, like I've suggested, they will make the money. 100%. And I do want to point out, you are pledging $150,000 to our fire department, plus the $48,000 for the truck. I asked Mr. Fallinger, who serves as the Vice President of Londonderry Fire Company, if I could ask him a couple of numbers. They have 30 active members servicing 4,890 residents across 26.93 square miles. They have less than half of our residents. Londonderry Township provides them roughly $30,000 in an annual donation. And this year, we're not even through 2024. We have 3 months to go. They've already raised $150,000. There is no budget hole if there is fundraising. And I bring this up to you because you have to take it seriously. This is in the budget. And I feel so strongly about it that I would consider vetoing the budget over this. I would. I'm at least putting you on notice as a teammate that that's how strongly I feel about it. I have a problem with the library donation too, but I'm bringing this up tonight because Sally's asking for it to go on the next agenda for a vote. Times are tough, but if the Gunsmoker is super successful, that should stay as a fundraiser. But I'm more than willing to offer my own help to the fire department to raise money, but I submit that the type of fundraisers they're doing are not going to cut it. It's either try to think outside the box and do something maybe as I suggest, or maybe talk to Londonderry about what they're doing. But this, to me, is amazing. That a town that's half our size, they've raised $150,000. They're not even finished the year. So, I'm letting you know my position on this now. Last year, you also wrote a check for $30,000 for a roof, and you paid for an audit on top of the $150, on top of the $48. It's not as if we're not supporting the fire department here. But something has to give. We can't just keep writing checks. And I understand that. I understand also that their budget went up for things outside of their control. I'm very objective. I get it. Insurance is up. Workers' comp is up. I fully understand that. But we have the same problems, and all these people out here have the same problems. So you have to put forth the effort to not waste your time on things that are only going to garner you $500 over 3 events. That's not worth the volunteers' time. That's not worth the volunteers' time. It's a different type of fundraising. And by the way, one final point. The chief stood here and said, I heard a lot of talk about the online raffles, and we heard from the DA, and that's not permissible. Well, I talked to the DA, and I asked him, did you talk to someone in the fire department about that? And he said, not that I can recall. And I said, are they legal or are they not? He said, it's fuzzy when it comes to being across the United States of America, but he really didn't see a problem as to why they can't run raffles online in this area. And I will tell you that Rich, as I've noted multiple times, it was Rich that brought it up. He supports all those fire departments for the same type of raffle.
Okay.
That's my position.
So,
I have a question.
go ahead, Ian.
Go ahead.
Sally, when does the fire department present their budget?
The 24th,
Of September, correct?
correct.
So that's before we vote on the Royalton Fund.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the only other thing I'd like to say, with all due respect, I think that, you know, these things should be discussed when someone from the fire department that has knowledge can address them. Not when Mr. Brady's there, because that's not really his role. So, you know, they can't even respond to any of the comments.
I understand. I wasn't here when they made some of their comments either.
If you're there on the 24th, then you can address those concerns with them.
Hang on a second. Earl, is Kenny or Jim gonna be here on the 24th?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I knew Kenny wouldn't be here, but I wasn't sure if Jim would, or,
Yeah.
On the 24th,
right,
Jim is supposed to be here on the 20th,
okay. All right,
I believe.
you
Yep.
believe, okay.
Counselor Lloyd makes a good point. We should wait until we can talk through the fire department budget with the fire department.
Exactly.
So right
That's
now, we're just,
fair, Jim.
I'm only responding to comments that
Yeah.
were made when I wasn't at this meeting about, I brought up the raffle online. I was not at a meeting where that was addressed. And I'm telling you in response, I called the DA directly. And with regard to Londonderry Fire Department, that's true. I called the DA directly.
Yeah, but
what I'm,
Londonderry runs.
I don't know enough about,
Of course they do. That's my point. And they raised $150,000 already in 2024.
what I'm hoping we can talk about also on the 24th is fundraising relative to their general fund, and if you have a separate capital fund. I don't know that. And I bring that up because the money that we offered for the roof last year was a new precedent. And that just, I would like to be clear on that. If there's an expectation of more capital costs coming our way, or if fundraising was increased, would that be able to cover capital costs so we're not seeing more and more dollars from the fire department. I'm just asking that to be part of the September 24th conversation. We don't have to drill down on that now, but I feel that was hanging out a little bit. We got caught up in the roof last time, and it was new, and I think we should have more conversation about expectations around capital costs.
Earl, do you have the ability to do a fish fry out there?
Rochelle.
Mm-mm.
Rochelle.
Probably could, manpower. I mean, I can't speak to everybody.
Yeah.
That's just it.
So, Mayor Curry, so you're proposing, from what I'm getting from you, is keep it at 150.
That's right.
And then we will obviously be, bringing in Royalton's funds for that, so we will be paying less than we were this year for.
That's 1,000% correct.
That's what
Because the letters that we had drafted to Royalton, the math was based off of the fact that you budget $150,000 in a donation and $48,000 to cover the pumper truck. And our argument to Royalton was, you should be paying your per capita share of that expenditure. They finally acquiesced. That's great news. 26,447 represents that amount. But now, you are going to give the fire department 150, and then you're going to take 19 from the 26 and give it to them, and then put the rest in the sinking fund. That means the ratio is now off again. You didn't even get through one budget season, and the ratio is off again. That was months and months and months of arguing to get it right and get Royalton to agree. And how long is that agreement in place? 3 or 5 years?
I think it's to 2029.
2029.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that the whole thing was gonna go in the operating fund.
That's what I thought.
I thought the whole 26 was gonna go into the operating fund, not go into the sinking fund at all.
Well,
I
we
don't
can't,
think I-
that, here's the difficulty with that. We can't give them 100% of the money if their budget is only 169. Can't give them 176 if their budget is 169. Can't just give them that money, it's taxpayer money. So we would keep it and put it into the fire sinking fund. That's the only way it can work.
Yep.
So,
Okay,
we can't just give them that money.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
So if
The
you
money's being paid to the borough, and it's borough funds.
Okay.
Yep.
See,
I mean, this seems to come up every year. The fire department, I think there was a long stretch that they didn't ask us for more money. But it seems like every year that the biggest thing, and I think Mayor Curry, you righteously point out that the fundraising needs to improve. But what happens when you're kind of at this point where we need to have a fire department, they need to function, and they need the money they need, but they're just not doing the fundraising? I mean, I'm not at a point where I'm going to say, well, hey, guess what? You're not going to be able to function because we're not giving you money. Good luck. So, where's that balance? Where's that give and take? How do you solve that problem? Cause I think you can, and the fire department in general, just, you know, I think that the mayor could help significantly with ideas, cause he's great with this stuff. I mean, I know there's been conflict, but I would hope that maybe you kinda, you know, take up his offer, cause he just offered it publicly to help you guys with some ideas.
There's no conflict on my end. My end is I have to protect 10,000 residents and their pocketbooks. And when I see Londonderry, and I only gave you one, and I have a request in for Lower Swatera, and if I come back and give you another fire department that is pulling off those type of numbers, something is wrong.
Yeah.
That's my point.
I mean, just the one thing at Londonderry is Londonderry owns its own golf course.
Mhm.
And I know they do a fundraiser that I think benefits the fire department.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking 5 times the amount of money.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think.
How much do you raise off the golf tournament?
I know we got a check from the electric company, $40,000. There was, almost $1,000 in 50/50. And I think it was like $2,000 or $3,000 that we actually made off the golf tournament itself.
And you still project that you might be,
It was only 10 people going it.
Yeah, it's hard to, a big number is hard to understand because every department probably gets funded a little differently. So I get that 150 is a big number, it's just,
no, it's gonna be
hard to
200 by the end of the
understand.
year, or closer to 200 by the end of the year. And he just explained to you that the only hiccup, or the only one-off situation that could possibly be argued about a golf course doesn't even amount to half of that. So how are you explaining to me the difference between 25 and 150?
Well, my question is, Fudge, how much did you make off the fish fry?
About 43,000,
Wow.
See,
and that was up 10,000 over last year.
mm,
Because last year, I'm sorry, the year before last, it was only takeout, and the last 2 years we've done
Every one of theirs,
and we went up about
Oh.
$10,000 in sit down
yeah.
last year.
including with my grandkids.
Is
It's fabulous.
Mayor,
So we're gonna move this on to the,
I'm
Yours-
sorry,
we're gonna
He's the vice president.
end
of
this and
Londonderry.
okay,
take it back up at the budget meeting.
okay.
alright.
Anybody have any other questions for Sally?
thank you, Sally.
Okay,
Thank you. The fire department, Earl? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Highway department, Matt, number 17? 17.
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Couple
evening.
quick things. First thing I had on there, Overdeer. Thank you for moving forward with that. I think the bids were welcome news, and it looks like that will be a project that can be accomplished without extra expense. So we're very fortunate for that. Gateway signs have been installed. Staff's been doing our normal things around town. We're marking up some asphalt sections that we're going to do some patchwork on soon. We're continuing with cleaning out inlets as part of our MS4 program. You see here, and I believe the action items have already been taken care of for the evening.
Okay.
Okay. So, thank you, everybody. Any questions? Yes, sir.
You sent me an email and I saw that they were over there checking them pipes that we spoke about on Hoffer. I know that they weren't able to get in all the residents' backyards.
Okay.
To look at the drains, and that was the main complaint of the one resident. So, I mean, I don't know what you can do there, coordinate, trying to make sure that gets looked at. I mean, it seems like the guy who was doing the doing the test seemed to think that the drainage was okay in general, like seemed better, seemed worse. But when was asked about like the drainage, like the actual physical drainage area, he couldn't give a comment. So.
Okay. Is it behind a fence? But I'll need to
I think
coordinate
there's
with
3 of
someone.
them back there behind fences.
Okay. All right.
2 of the residents, that was the main issue that they were having.
yeah, I mean, hopefully the pipes are in good shape. That kind of lends back into the right-of-way thing. If there's fences over the pipes and we have to do pipe work, that'll be a very, needs some serious coordination and discussion on people putting things across the pipes.
Yeah,
But, yes, I'll coordinate with them. I believe they said they're gonna be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'll coordinate with them in the first thing in the morning and we'll try to get access on those.
Perfect, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anything else?
And, yeah, any other questions for Matt?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks. Number 18 is Mara, and our meeting was canceled this month, so there's no report. Number 19, police report. Dan?
Good evening. We're currently operating with one vacancy. Our 3 officers are still in the FTO program. They're doing really well. We advertised for the police officer position, the one vacancy. The test is October 5th. We have several applications already, so hopefully we'll be able to hire somebody from the list. I was prepared to answer some questions on the TASER quote, but that was approved. Thank you. The car show and the fireworks went great. I actually had to direct traffic for people to leave. There were that many cars there. So we're going to actually have to do a little bit of planning next year just to where to put additional cars. I think the fact that we don't have a registration fee invites people that might not normally go to their car show. So it's kind of a blue-collar car show mixed in with some real classics and nice cars. It was an excellent event. Speaking of events, we have the Halloween parade, tree lighting, and Frosty 5K coming up, and I have local fire police online for all of those, so they'll be here providing us assistance. So we're ready to we'll be prepared for that. And on a side note, I might invite them for the car show next year, so I don't have to park all 123 cars. So, thank you. Good practice for me.
And Dan, that, you already know the date for that, so if you wanna give them a shout out a year in advance.
Yeah, we have to, I provide them a written request. They give me a verbal response, but I provide them a written request so their municipality can cover them under their local workers' comp, so.
Okay.
I'll take care of it.
Thanks.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Number 20, joint venture Veolia. No one's here. Number 21, council.
Don't look at me.
Nothing. Okay. Now is the time of general public comment. If you want to step forward, sir.
I volunteered to jump on this grenade and sit through this meeting here. I got a letter here signed by every resident on the 300 block of Spruce Street. Yep. John Matson, 310 Spruce Street. Lived there for about 30 years. We've got a huge problem with Daly's Garage, or I like to call it Daly's Junkyard. Come home last Tuesday, they had 18 cars parked on the street. We can't get parking. I mean, we got to literally fight for our parking. It's getting to that way. It's getting to that point. There's cars that are parked there for a day, a week, a month, 2 months. Sometimes the police have to waste their resources to come out and tag the cars. And then when he comes into town, because doesn't live there, he just tows them behind his garage so nobody gets in trouble. So we're literally fed up with this. There was a neighbor that moved in across the street. I went to introduce myself. You know what he said to me? I didn't even tell him who I was. He said, "Is parking always this bad on this street?" I said, "Yes, it is. Yes, it is, but we're trying to do something right now." So we all of us got together. We signed it. I wrote this letter up, signed it. We'd like to get permit parking on the 300 block of Spruce Street. There's no reason. I've come home before from Sam's Club, had to park on Water Street at the church and haul everything over to Spruce Street because this guy, you approach him. I've approached him. I will not go around a guy anymore. I can't stand him because he'll sit there and lie to you and tell you that's the customer's car. That's the customer's car. Well, might be, but the customer is your customer and it's parked in front of our houses, you know. So we have no parking. So we would like to get permit parking. Second issue on there is there's a lot to the rear of my house, 310 Spruce Street. It was owned by the church. When the church owned this, phenomenal. Great working relationship. The gentleman mowed the grass. They've cleaned up the limbs. I would go back there with my truck, haul it out the woody waste for him. Great. He comes in, cut down every tree, which is his right. If he bought it, it's his. He can do what he wants. But his whole purpose was to put a parking lot back there. Well, if he puts a parking lot, anybody that's been around here, Mayor, you have been, seen the flooding down there to the rear of 310 Spruce Street. All them houses will be flooded. He has already filled it in. We've got pictures of them filling it in, and we've sent them the codes. I don't know where they're at. I've not heard. I've talked to codes a little bit. Have not heard anything back from them about that, what's going on with that. The last I was told is he legally can't tell me what he's doing with the property. If he's putting a parking lot back there, you're going to have a hell of a situation on your hand, because as everybody knows, when it floods back there, it goes the whole way down to Conawaga Street. Right now, we have some neighbors working with people to try to get a petition together, and we're going to try to get everybody to sign it the whole way that's going to be affected by them putting a parking lot back there. You know, we just want our neighborhood back is all we want. The whole problem started, it was always been bad, but since Mark Spittler is buying this from Joe Daly, it seems like he's trying to run a dealership out of a corner garage. You know, you just cannot do that in Middletown. You do not have the room to do that. He has his front lot, his back lot, and he has the church parking that he puts cars over. I don't know what his agreement is with them. But that should be more than enough room to run your business without inconveniencing all the neighbors. I got neighbors that tell me they don't want to leave their house because they're afraid they won't have a parking spot when they come back. That's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just flat out ridiculous. It's just, I can tell you this, if any of you guys lived what we've lived since he's taken that over, I guarantee you, you'd be voting on permit parking tonight and the signs would be going up tomorrow because you wouldn't want to put up with it. It's pretty horrible. I've already had to move, and I told this tonight to Ellen, I've already had to move my garbage cans out of the street so they could pull a car in and park it. And the filling it in, that's just going to flood us. And Mayor, you dealt with filling in with the Chinese restaurant. You got about, what, 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches of stone? We're talking feet of junk back there. There's big boulders they put back there. There's dirt. They dug it out. They dug the garage out that's back there and poured concrete in and just dumped all the dirt along with a bunch of millings back there. So it's definitely a problem that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. And Angie, I was dealing with Angie. That poor girl, bless her soul, she's got 1 million texts from me of how many cars are parked on the street this day, the cars that they park blatantly right in front of our houses, and then they'll sit there for a month. You know, it is not right. It is not right at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what else to say, but we need to get the wheels rolling on something here as quickly as possible. You know, it's just not right that a business can inconvenience and terrorize a neighborhood like this to put money in his pocket. It's all about the almighty dollar. It's not right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Diamond, do we have permits in any other part of town?
Yeah, I think I know we looked at it. I don't know if we ever implemented it. Didn't we buy the?
Just permit parking on
Yeah,
Morton Avenue and on Wood Street.
Oh, that's another.
Yeah, I was gonna say by the
Put it on Wilson Street.
Now that you brought that up.
large rental. unit.
That's what I meant by Wood
Had to
Street
implement
there.
it.
No, you put it on Wood Street. You put it on Wood Street and
There's
Wilson
something on
Street.
Wood Street from certain times to certain times, but Wharton Avenue is a perfect example, and it's really ironic that one of his employees that parks the cars on the street after he works on them lives on Wharton Avenue, gets to go home, to parking, no junkyard, you know, it's to go home to a pleasurable place to be, not like we have to go through every day. I mean, there's points where I take my trailer, fishing, or to go kayaking, canoeing, I come back, I have nowhere to park, because as soon as I move that trailer out, they're moving cars in. So,
I have a question.
hit me.
What
I'll-
Sorry. The church is the one behind Turkey Hill?
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Yes.
you're, okay, and where's the lot that you're referring to? I don't,
It's the one on Spruce Street.
so, there's the garage and then there's a fenced-in area behind it, right?
Of Daly's, you mean?
Right,
Yes, there's his front lot, there's the garage, and then he has a fenced-in area in the back.
yep.
And then if you come up the street, then right there is where last Tuesday, there was 18 cars between Water Street and Main Street that were not residents. We're lucky tonight, there's only 10.
Okay, and so the lot that you're saying,
So you come up the street from Turkey Hill,
yep,
right when you see the church, there's a small lot there. You could probably park 8, 10 cars. They fill that up, and that's fine. They must have permission to do it, and that's fine. I wish they would put them all in there. Put them in there. Don't put them and take our parking spots.
but what's the lot that you were referring to, sir, with the concrete that you said they,
There's an empty field. It's a drainage that's behind. Supposedly there was a when all the flooding went down and stuff. You were down there.
yes, I was, yep.
And when that all went down, the church told me, the men from the church told me that they wanted to put a parking lot in there, and the borough would not allow them to do it. This was years ago.
This is on the Daly side of the street?
Yes, right to the rear. My house is 310 Spruce Street.
Okay.
So between Keller Avenue and Water, right behind there. You go back there, and I've sent pictures to codes. The girl behind actually got videos and pictures of them actually filling it in, and we've sent it to them. I would say a guesstimation, probably what has been filled in would probably hold 10 to 15,000 gallons of water if it gets in there so that it can drain down. There is 2 drains back there, but if there is a parking lot that goes back there, I'm telling you, that is going to be flood for everybody. We will get water every time it rains.
And that lot abuts your lot?
It butts mine, it butts Matt Seeley's and the Sharps.
Okay.
You talk to the Sharps.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is if it gets filled in, then it's going to, when the water comes up, it's going to go right over and just head right down through there to Conawaga Street, down the alley to Conawaga Street, where they all flooded before. Then it turns and goes down around to, Columbia, to Pine. And everybody knows the flooding that's happened in 11 and 17. So we cannot afford to have some new business owner that thinks he's going to come in and make all kinds of money on the backs of the inconvenience of the residents. It's just not right. So
Now, John, I know I can picture that little cutout of a parking lot
for the
on the spruce, on the spruce side of the church. But if you turn the corner on the water side, so you're on Water Street of the church, you turn and there's I don't know, there's a huge parking lot there.
that's the other church parking lot. Yep.
So it's like 26 or 30 spaces.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're allowed to use that. I don't know what their arrangement is. All I know that they fill that lot up every day, and then they just, and this is a real
The church lot?
the church lot. So they might have some special arrangement with them, and that's fine. I don't care. What I'm saying is they fill that lot up, their front lot and their back lot, and then they just take our space. They just take our parking.
I didn't realize there was that much going through there.
You know, oh yeah. Well, you know, Angie, I just got so fed up, and thank God she gave me her number. And I just started, I said, you know what? Something's got to be done. I'm going to text her. 17 cars a day. Here's one right in front of my house. I go to therapy, I come back, I can't even get a parking spot because these buttholes are taking up all the parking spots in the street. There's just too much business going through there, and he doesn't have room to run it. I mean, if he wants a dealership, go out 22 and buy a dealership when you have, 20, 30 acres that you can have cars go through. You can't run 50 cars through a 3-bay corner garage.
John, we just have to remind of the 4-minute limit. Yeah.
I'm just asking that,
Right.
one last thing. Can I finish one thing here? Because there was a couple extra questions. 2 years ago, the borough came to me with the sidewalk thing, and reluctantly, I replaced my sidewalk to the tune of $6,000. So now, I'm just asking the borough to do something for us and get us permanent parking. Doesn't cost you a dime. Not a dime. Just let us have our neighborhood back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else with public comment?
What does that real quick? What does that look like for like these streets that have permanent parking? Does each resident owner get like a certain amount of spaces or?
Yeah, they get two parking spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, they get a little.
Yeah,
little
you don't
tag.
have to allocate 2, that's pretty common. It depends on how much room you have and how many houses are there.
You don't get a particular space.
No, you get
you
taxed.
sign the street permit parking, and you get a permit. You get two permits. One, if you have two cars, you have two cars. You have three cars, you get two permits. That's the way Wharton is.
Okay.
So, if you and I both live on Wharton, I might come home and park in front of your house, cause it's available, and it's not available in front of mine.
Got it.
Cause somebody else with a permit pulled in front of mine. So it doesn't reserve your spot directly in front of your house, but it reserves the street for only people holding a permit.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just making clear how it works.
Seeing no other comment, public comment, do I have a motion to adjourn? We will be going to executive session.
So moved.
We will not be coming back.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
You got me on that, Pat? You got me on that one.
Confused. Who owns that
Gotta
lot?
win sometime.
Oh, Lord, down,
Oh, I gotta go down there and look.
Gotta win sometime.
Over there
Okay.
is a church.